listening to
the Ringside Renaissance Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to Ringside Renaissance. I'm Kevin alongside Andy and Jesse, and we are here to discuss another one of our favorite topics in pro wrestling, and that is heels. How are you guys doing today?
Good. What's up?
I don't know. What do you guys think? It doesn't matter what you think.
You gotta wait for somebody to talk, man.
You weren't saying shit.
I know. Well, I didn't think that's where you were going until you just did. So
You're fired.
You're fired.
What a maneuver.
All right, you boys. Let's get into it. Who wants to give their first heel?
Oh boy.
I'm not talking size 7s.
Heels in professional wrestling. My first one starting off as my favorite heel of all time, and what a true art of a heel is, and I'm going with Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
I will bring up Roddy Piper whenever I get an opportunity to. Roddy Piper is probably my favorite wrestler of all time, and you're talking late 70s, early 80s Roddy Piper before he turned babyface in WWF, and what a guy that could bring heat. And I think heat is a lost art form in professional wrestling these days. I think a lot of people think they're getting heat when really they're just being stupid and ridiculous. We're talking about Roddy Piper coming to the ring and people literally in the crowd with knives trying to stab him because they don't like him that much.
Damn, that happened?
Yes, and it was very much so. Roddy Piper spoke of a time when he came out to the ring and the referee came out to jumped out of the ring and went towards the crowd, and Roddy Piper just continued going to the ring, and the referee actually went and got, I don't know if it was a knife or a gun from the person in the crowd, because the referee saw it, but Roddy Piper was doing his entrance and didn't pay attention.
Wow.
And talk about bringing true heat. Fans just wanting to see him get his ass beat, and the way that they built Roddy Piper, especially once he went to the WWF, and I don't think he wrestled for the first year he was there, and he would just come out and just say some off the wall ridiculous stuff and bring all this heat, and it just built the anticipation of the fans just wanted to see him get his so badly that the payoffs were just incredible. And I think he completely knocked it out of the park with representing a heel and what a heel was supposed to be all about.
The kilt. Yeah. And talk about WrestleMania with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan, right?
Yes. I mean, they had a match. Hogan and Piper had a match before that to set up WrestleMania, which I'll speak on later. But WrestleMania 1, the main event, Hogan and Mr. T versus Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper, and bringing wrestling into the mainstream, and just casual fans. Everybody knew Mr. T back in the 80s, so to have him in a match, it just drew more eyes to the product, and it was just fantastic. Everything he did, Piper's Pit, the first real kind of talk show, successful talk show on WWF TV, just burying everybody that came on. Then we had the iconic coconut smash to Jimmy Superfly Snuka over the head, all the way up until, it's when he turned babyface, but Piper's Pit was so big that's where WWF set up Hogan versus Andre for WrestleMania 3 was right on Piper's Pit. I think he just got over so well as a heel that eventually there was no way they could keep him heel. Everybody just was so sold and bought into what he was doing in his art form. But yeah, Roddy Piper is my favorite heel of all time, and probably my undisputed favorite wrestler of all time.
Yeah, such a big instigator too, and so great with interacting and even making the other wrestlers better and making them even better good guys.
Do it. But it's you could still feel that heat when he would come back towards the end of his career.
And he was so good at being like that baby face too, with being disrespectful
Exactly.
to the heels.
Like he was
in
a
that way.
heelish baby
Yeah.
face his entire career.
Well, look, all the way up until WrestleMania 19 or 20 when Hogan faced Vince McMahon. And Hogan was all back on top of the world, a giant baby face and fighting Vince McMahon. And out of nowhere, here came Piper to hit Hogan in the head with the lead pipe and cost, it's like, it just always worked for him. He was so natural at it and he was so good. And one of another true lost art form is that his mouth could get him over. Like he was good in the ring, but just by what he said and how he carried himself, it just got him over. And it was just a beautiful lost art form. And I think Roddy Piper was the best to do it.
And truthfully, even in current days of wrestling, you can see a lot of hints of Piper's persona in some of the current heels. Like they all pull little things from everywhere, but like I've noticed it a lot, especially like MJF. I see a lot of Piper in his promos.
Why don't you talk about MJF a little bit, Kev?
That's who I was leading off with. It was my favorite heel in today's day.
Definitely.
MJF. Because he's better than you, and you know it. But just everything I like MJF no matter what, babyface or heel. But he's just much better as a heel, but it translates into the whole Piper thing where he got so over as a heel that it was hard to keep him a heel in AEW. Like he gets the title, he has that match with Samoa Joe, and even when like Joe won, more than half the crowd wasn't happy with that. Still coming off as like a heelish babyface. Promo where he called Tony Khan a mark.
Look at the dog collar match with him and Punk.
Yeah.
Like what a way to put CM Punk. If CM Punk wasn't the top babyface in AEW, like what a way to do it than to put him in a dog collar match against CM Punk and or against MJF. Sorry. And wow. So good. It was one of the great matches of AEW, if you ask me.
I was about to say that's probably one of my top 5 matches in AEW.
Good.
For sure. And MJF, and you think about like the promo he had with Brian Pillman Jr. in Cincinnati, and some of the stuff he would say, and his little feuds with Cody Rhodes, and
his press conferences too. Like he never turns off the character.
Yeah, and even in the hotels, and seeing fans, the press conferences.
It got to a point where you're not sure, like, if that's a character, if that's just MJF being MJF.
The meet and greets, everything.
Oh my God. I've seen fan recorded videos of, like, the fans, like, oh my God, I love you, and he just go off on them. Like, stop wasting my fucking time. Let's get this over with.
I remember when he went up to the barricade, and they had a little boy in the audience, and he took the drink and he spilled it right on the boy.
He didn't spill it on him. He fucking
threw it right in his face.
Threw it in his face.
You know, it's funny because like what he portrays, like the whole "I'm better than you and you know it" gimmick, and coming from like Long Island and Burberry scarf, and my wife says it like. She was like, he looks like all those like snotty like rich kids that I went to high school with that I couldn't stand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's what he portrays, and he pulls it off very well. And like he went to great lengths even before. If you look up on YouTube before AEW, he made like this mini documentary about his life, and had like the documentary crew come to his house and talk to his parents and stuff. And like he was talking about he was this big football star and all this shit, and then they end up uncovering that he wasn't a football star. He was just like making it up and shit. Like it was a really funny documentary and well done, and like for somebody on the indies to like put that much into their character was really cool. I watched it after I started watching AEW, and it just made me love him all the more.
And he was really like that in the indies too. What he is in AEW, of course, he got a little bit bigger and more trained at that point, but he always portrayed that character. And a lot of people, if you watch stuff like wrestlers that he trained under or was in the indies with, he was always really great, and that same person, that same heel.
And to speak on to Kevin's point too, like when he came to AEW, I think he was in like the inaugural like the battle royal thing to become like a number 1 contender for the title, but like that, like you didn't see him wrestle. Like he was just like Piper, where like he would just come out and just do his bullshit, and like you wanted to see someone punch him right in the face, but no one would. Like it just never happened. It just built it up more and more and more. Like you just wanted to see this guy get his ass kicked, you know?
Once it gets to his matches, as few and far between as they were good matches. I don't know if I've seen a terrible or even close to bad MJF match. Even the crap he did with Adam Cole. Like,
All in. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, dude, the kangaroo kick, as goofy of a move as that is, I fucking love it.
Yeah. I mean, his mother even plays into him being a heel and talking shit about him and everything. And yeah, just great stuff by MJF altogether.
Dedication to the character, you know.
He's definitely one of the best heels of the modern era.
For sure. It's hard to stay heel with like social media and everything, because you go out and you do all this, you know, heelish stuff on TV, and then on social media they show you like delivering like food during Thanksgiving to the homeless and stuff, and it's like, all right, well.
Which is a good segue into who I was going to talk about, because even with social media these days, this person probably would have stayed in character the whole time. And I'm going to go way throwback and go to Andy Kaufman.
Ooh,
that's a
love it.
Yeah.
Big throwback.
Somebody that, you know, didn't start as a wrestler. Check out The Man on the Moon if you haven't seen it to get a little bit of his story. But started as a comedian, loved wrestling, always knew how to be unorthodox and push the boundaries and push what people thought was normal as a comedian in that world. Transferred over into acting also. Had this big legendary feud with another great heel in Jerry Lawler, the King. Would call women out on stage in the ring to wrestle them, and he would pin them, of course. And I believe he was the intergender champion for a while. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Until he caught up, Jerry King caught up with him, had an infamous like slap on live late night TV, and really set the bar for what a heel can be.
And then like to play, like, you know, to go with the neck brace, the theme of neck braces recently in pro wrestling, like Jerry the King Lawler came out and challenged him and gave him the pile driver.
Yes.
And then Andy Kaufman, just every appearance he showed up at, he wore the neck brace for so long to sell it. And it was, I don't know, it was very well done. And he would come out and like, you know, they were in like Memphis territory, and come out and be like, oh, I bought a present for you fans. And he'd pull out toilet paper. Ooh, this is toilet paper. You use it to wipe yourself. And this is soap. And you use it killed. It killed. It was so good. So good.
The people would just scream. They just hated him too. And you can see like stuff in like Logan Paul almost in ways now too, with like the celebrity. You know, Logan Paul might not be an actor, but he's that big on that stage where he'd be like, I'm a big celebrity, I'm an actor, like you can't hurt me like that.
He plays into the whole I'm a big influencer thing.
Yeah, because people hated him for the stuff that he did on social media or YouTube at some points. And you know, he knew how to use it to his advantage.
And it just helped him, because he was that athletic, translate into being a pro wrestler, not having to act when you're on screen, and just being acrobatic and athletic as all hell. Those two things combined make for a good heel.
And it's another thing too, it's a human's natural inclination is to have resentment and hate towards people that you feel like are more successful than you, you know. And with the case of Andy Kaufman, or with like even Logan Paul, like these were successful people in whatever field, a comedian or a social media influencer, and they come out and they infiltrate our company, you know, like what we love, and they come in and they're like, oh well, I did this, but now I'm wrestling. And it's just a natural, people fans of pro wrestling kind of reject that, you know. Even when Mr. T came, like Mr. T came in to be like the mighty babyface with Hogan, but if you fast forward to WrestleMania 2, and I hate to keep going back to Piper, but if you fast forward to WrestleMania 2, Roddy Piper and Mr. T had a boxing match against each other as one of the main events of WrestleMania 2, And at the beginning of the match, everyone was booing Piper and cheering Mr. T. But by the end of the boxing match, everybody was cheering Piper and booing Mr. T.
Right.
Like they really backed Piper. Like, this is our guy, you know,
It's crazy.
Like, yeah. It
Yeah.
was like that double turn, like we talk about Bret Hart and Austin. It was the same thing, but way back at WrestleMania 2 in 1986. I'm going to switch gears here and go to the original ECW.
Ooh.
And I'm going to pick the group of the Dudley Boys.
Yes.
And
dude, they were amazing as heels in the beginning.
And
the goats.
And it went past Bubba Ray and Devon. You had Big Dick Dudley. You had Spike Dudley. You know, you had Sign Guy that would come out with them. It was just so well done, and stuff they probably couldn't do on broadcast TV. You know, some of the stuff that they would say and do to the crowd to get heat, you could not put that on broadcast TV. But they had local access, and they had, you know, their small bingo hall that they were doing their shows in, that they were allowed to do some of the stuff that they did. And some
ECW
of it,
arena.
And some of it translated. Some of it translated to WWF, but like their true like heel art form was just peaked in ECW, when they didn't have like the restraints on them, and they could just say and do whatever they want. Bubba Ray, like literally, like I can't even say some of the stuff he would say to some of the
people
fans.
To blow. Their mom was going to blow them, and you know, more words.
It was just phenomenal. And it was the point where, like, before the match even started, stuff was getting thrown in the ring. People trying to jump the rail to get at him. Like, talk about nuclear heat. And like they just did it in like. Didn't even phase them, or they didn't even crack or break at all. They just kept with it. And Devon didn't really have to be. Bubba Ray was more the mouthpiece, but Devon didn't have to. You know, like he was just. I don't know. It was very well done, and I love watching old ECW tapes just to see. Well, not to see that, but that was one of my favorite things of the old ECW tapes, to see some of that amazing heat they would get, again, just with their words. You know, I love people that can get over in the ring with like their heel tactics and their heel moves, but like the people that could get over just by talking, like you don't even have to see them fight, and you want to see them get their ass kicked. It was so good.
That's my next person, which is a mix of ECW and a lot of talking. The brain behind ECW, Paul freaking Heyman.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Probably the best heel manager to ever exist on this planet. I don't care what anybody says. I'll take Paul over any of them. Like when he talks, even at his Hall of Fame induction speech, he just turns that heel button on, and he's good. You listen to him. Every time you hear "ladies and gentlemen," the crowd would start booing immediately. But yet they would also help finish his promo. Or his introduction. Like the "ladies and gentlemen, my name is," you would hear the crowd yelling, "My name is Paul Heyman." It's like the crowd, he's someone the crowd loved to hate. His run with Brock, his run with CM Punk, most recently as the wise man for Roman Reigns. He just does incredible work on the microphone to the point where his client or whoever he's with doesn't have to talk or do anything.
Right, and talk about being like a face for ECW and then being a heel to the WWF or WWE at the same time.
Right.
And
Paul Heyman's just the GOAT, man.
And having a manager for somebody like Brock Lesnar wasn't ever really that great on the mic, or Roman Reigns used to people used to boo him on the mic and stuff, and just to have a mouthpiece as a manager to get you over. And I would even say like he was a baby face, like everybody knew he was the leader of ECW, but when they did the invasion angle on Monday Night Raw, when ECW invaded Monday Night Raw, he came in, he was the leader of the ECW locker room. Like he was the face and came out and like put over all of his guys from ECW and was a monster heel in WWF. And this was back in like 93, 94. And they went in as like this ultimate unit. Like, everybody would beat the hell out of each other in ECW, but when they went to invade WWF, they were really a unit and together, and Paul Heyman led that charge even to the later invasion in 2001, and speaking on managers, I'm glad you said that, because I wrote down a lot of managers, and I don't want to take too much time, but like I just want to do
Right.
a couple like shout outs and honorable mentions. It's like because managers is very important to the art form of a heel. Bobby the Brain Heenan, which I spoke on before. Amazing heel. Could get the match over or get the person over just by talking and promoting it. Jim Cornette, we have to mention Jim Cornette as being like the dastardly heel that nobody liked and everybody wanted to see get his ass beat. Like he would take bumps when they were needed just because he knew that that's what people wanted to see.
Right.
Eric Bischoff.
Yes.
As like the authority figure, but like with the heel faction, and was a really great on-screen persona. Classy Freddie Blassie. When we go back old school, Classy Freddie Blassie was phenomenal. Yeah. I love watching Classy Freddie Blassie and what he could do. And it's like I've said a few times here, it's a complete art form to be able to just be able to get somebody to hate you and have that much heat on you just by using your words and talking. And Classy Freddie Blassie was a classic for that.
Yeah, and just like, you know, Paul Heyman and the Dudley Boys, they really understood it when Paul Heyman would show up to WWE with whoever. Would it be RVD or Sabu at first? You know, WWE, WWF audience wouldn't really know who they were. Didn't matter who it was. They would hate them because they were with Paul Heyman. Yeah. Just fucking great.
We can't forget about one of the greatest managers / wrestlers as a heel, the $1 Million Man.
Yeah.
Very good.
Ted DiBiase. Like, I know we've talked about in the past how he would get like people from the crowd to do these little challenges and say he would offer them money, and then at the last second would make sure they didn't complete it. It's just
he was just good. And never became a babyface. No. Under that persona, they never switched him babyface. He was always a heel, and
he was always that rich prick that you just wanted to see get his ass beat.
And then when his son came in, you know, Ted DiBiase under Legacy, you know, $1 million belt used to piss me off so bad, and like
but it's so
I'd
beautiful.
see him come out with it, and I'd be like, "This," but like in reality, I just wanted it. Like I wanted that $1 million belt. I thought it looked so freaking cool, you know.
Yeah.
Who's your next deal, Andy?
I'm gonna go with Kurt Angle.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which version of Angle?
Well, like pretty much the first version of Angle.
When you say heel Angle, I think of the TNA Perk Angle.
Well, you'd have to go back even before that because the real jerk, obsessed with himself, thought he was the greatest in the world. You know, gold medals. I won with a broken neck. Kurt Angle, the beginning Kurt Angle. He was just arrogant and a prick and thought he was better than everybody. And he backed it up in the ring, too, without a doubt.
100%.
Changed wrestling in some ways in the ring, for sure, with the ankle locks, the Olympic slams, the suplexes, like, just great. Knew how to make everybody hate him. Had great feuds with Austin, The Rock.
Yeah.
With everybody.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you know, his autobiography I read a long time ago, and in it is like one of the great, and it fits right in with this episode, is that he said the to be a heel is so easy because it's so easy to get somebody to hate you, but it's so hard to get somebody to love you. You can find a way to get somebody to hate you. I can make anybody hate me, but it's hard to get people to like you, you know. Just took that and ran to the and he actually got Edge and Christian over too when Edge and Christian were a tag team, and like they were like siding with Kurt Angle and stuff, and like their little backstage promos and stuff they would do were really funny and got over at the time. And when Taz debuted at the Royal Rumble and choked him out,
shit,
and like for weeks he would sit there and watch the footage and rewind it, and he was like, I technically didn't lose because I technically didn't tap out, and like just made you want to fucking punch him right in the mouth.
The cowboy hat. Like
I do. I always think back to when he was cutting that promo in the back with Edge, and Edge handed him the signs. I just kept saying, I suck.
Yeah.
All that.
And then, with the crowd, you know, his song, I loved his freaking entrance music when it first came out. I thought it was awesome. When we all would wrestle, that would be one of the ones we would pick and do his whole thing, even if you hated him. Tried to have some type of medals around your neck from some sporting event you had, you know, from being a kid. And talk about out hating him with his entrance music.
Mhm.
You suck.
Yeah.
You
How many
suck.
heels can
Yeah.
you say got a "you suck" chant factored into their entrance alone?
And he rolled with it too, and he
Yeah.
bought into it. Even like his Hall of Fame speech, he was like goading the fans to like chant the "you suck" parts. Like he was pointing like for them to do it, and like so bought into the character. You know, he was so like, look at the stuff he did, the backstage shit he did with Stone Cold Steve Austin, like the goofy little whatevers he did. Then they did the Milkomania when he came out with the milk truck, and he was so bought into that character. It was so good.
Yeah, Angle's he'll definitely always go down in history as one of the better heels in professional wrestling. His run in TNA, he was an asshole, like just a hard hitting asshole. He wasn't goofy at all. He was just a dick.
Yeah, and he was in the Main Event Mafia, which was another amazing heel group. You know, led the way with that, and that was kind of like a new wave kind of Four Horsemen. And I didn't really care for the faction, but.
Right, but for a company that really didn't have too many different legs to stand on, the Main Event Mafia really helped carry TNA during that time.
I got the next one on my list. I'm going to go to the People's Champ, The Rock. And I'm talking back 90s. He came out as Rocky Maivia with the Jerry curl and the tassels and shit, and like everybody was chanting "Die Rocky Die" and "Rocky sucks," and had a lot of go away heat. And he ended up teaming with the Nation of Domination, and that's where he really shined. And was the head of the Nation of Domination, but like very quickly the fans kind of accepted The Rock as that role. And his feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Stone Cold Steve Austin was the massive babyface and you needed that counterpart. And it's just like anything else. They got to have a yin to your yang, you know, superheroes, you know, Man and Lex Luthor, and, you know, Batman and the Joker, and like Stone Cold's counterpart was The Rock. And like it always came back. It always came back to Stone Cold and The Rock, no matter what storylines were coming through, and, you know, all this different stuff to equate it to superheroes. Like I said, Batman always had other foes, but he always came back to the Joker, you know. Thing with The Rock. And I don't know, Stone Cold might have been as over without The Rock, but The Rock definitely helped. And him becoming the big baby face, and then coming up to the Survivor Series, they had a vacant WWF title, and Mankind was Vince McMahon's like little crony, and The Rock was the consummate baby face. And like going all through the tournament, everybody cheered for The Rock, wanted The Rock to win. And then all of a sudden at the end, you realize that it was a coup, and The Rock was aligned with Vince McMahon the whole time, and they screwed over Mankind and won the title. And like his ability, The Rock's ability, when he came back as like Hollywood Rock or whatever, and he came out trying to be a babyface, and the crowd was booing him, and he just flipped the switch and became heel, like in the ring on the spot. It wasn't like, oh no, we're just going to keep trying to get this over. It was, okay, they're rejecting me right now, so heel Rock's coming out. Right, and he just flipped the switch and just turned heel Rock. Same thing with his most recent run as the final boss. Like, they kind of made it as they were going to have The Rock come back and fight Roman, and oh my God, we're going to back, and everybody rejected it. And on like the turn of a dime, like, he was the final boss and the heel.
I believe that switch.
Yeah. Because social media picked it up when he came out on SmackDown, and Cody shook his hand and kind of whatever, and social media had an uproar.
Dude, it was a complete revolt by the WWE universe.
And earlier that day, from that press conference, he was on the Pat McAfee show, and that's when he started the Cody Crybaby thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Seeds being planted, and everybody knew it. And shout out to Pat McAfee for like, when wrestlers come on his show, for like selling the product, you know, for not being like, oh, okay, man, okay. When The Rock attacked Cody and threw him off the bus and made him bleed and rubbed the blood all over Mama Rhodes' belt, and shout out Mama Rhodes. And
we miss you.
For like a week after that on the Pat McAfee show, anytime any guest came on, whether it was like for whatever sport or whatever, Pat would say to him, "Did you see what The Rock did to Cody Rhodes this week?" Like it was every single person that came on. Like he said it to every single person.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what The Rock did to Cody Rhodes? You know, like transcending it and selling the product. And The Rock, it wouldn't have been done if The Rock wasn't so good at it. And
right. Like I'm a firm believer that The Rock is a much better heel than he is a babyface.
Oh, for sure.
Well, going back to The Rock being heel, you know, when he first started and became a heel in the Nation of Domination, leading up to that, of course, he was a babyface, and it kind of organically happened that he turned bad because he needed that help from his father, and the audience just kind of turned on him, and so they used that, and that was the first, you know, kind of start of him learning to do that.
Yeah.
And there was a thing backstage. I heard that like before he went out to do his debut with the Nation of Domination, like something he told Vince McMahon or whatever, hey, can I just get 2 minutes on the mic? Like, can I just get 2 minutes on the mic before our segment just to kind of speak my mind a little bit? And he came out, and that's when he did the little promo about the fans chanting Rocky sucks and die Rocky die. And there's a lot of things The Rock does, and sucks isn't one of them. And like, just
and he
so
said that
good.
again, and when he came back in the recent run, when the crowd was chanting "Rocky sucks," he goes, "Rock is many things. Sucks isn't one of them." It was, I think, during the Rock concert. But
I'll forget that one.
This is a good transition into my next heel, the Ultimate Opportunist, the Rated R Superstar. That the whole character of the Rated R Superstar really helped catapult Edge into that next level of superstardom.
Yeah.
And I think it truly didn't begin until he cashed in that Money in the Bank at New Year's Resolution against John Cena after the Elimination Chamber match. And he like solidified himself as the Ultimate Opportunist. We could bring up a lot. The live sex celebration with Lita.
Yeah, that got me through a lot of nights in high school.
Yeah,
I think it got us all through a lot. But just the way he carried himself, and then you fast forward a couple years later in his feud with The Undertaker, you just wanted to see Edge lose. And like leading up to that WrestleMania against Undertaker, Edge always got the last word or the last hit in on Taker. Whether it was due to the Edge heads, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, or his general manager, girlfriend, wife, Vicky Guerrero. Guerrero was involved in that, but everything he did, he always got the upper hand on his opponent and you just wanted to see him get his ass beat. And then it always culminated in that match, like even against Mick Foley at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
People would, if you watch that back, people cheered for him when he beat Mick Foley, even though he was the heel.
Heel Edge is definitely my favorite Edge, besides like the throwback days to the tag team with him and Christian. But as far as Edge goes, as a solo wrestler, talked about like John Cena, and he like broke into sort of John Cena's house and went and paid John Cena's father a visit, I believe, in Boston at one time. And then talk about like real heat. You brought up like Lita with the real heat with like Matt Hardy behind the scenes and using it, as something big. And he was just really big for that time period right there.
He honestly, he carried Raw and the WWE for a while during that run.
See, my favorite Edge is in U2, but damn
it.
It was good, man. Like Edge and even back when Edge and Christian, the tag title days, the Dudley Boys were getting over during the TLC matches. The Hardy Boys, everybody was cheering for, so there had to be a heel in that feud. And Edge and Christian stepped in and did the 5-second photo. 5-second photo opportunity, and they would do the poses and shit. Like, so good.
Oh man! So next, somebody's got to do it. I'm gonna go all the way back. I'm gonna go all the way back with this one though, because that's where it really started. Was in Ring of Honor, the Second City Saint.
Yes.
CM Punk, because that's where it really started. The greatness of being that heel and making people hate you, and talk about signing your WWE contract on the Ring of Honor belt that you just won when you just swerved everybody and cut this promo about, being the devil. Like the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making people think that he never existed. And then
did,
coming on to WWE and the Straight Edge Society, which we kind of talked about at another point, which he had great matches and great feuds and made people really hate him, especially at house shows and everywhere, playing this kind of Jesus image, coming out dressed as Jeff Hardy and feuding with Rey Mysterio and singing Happy Birthday to Rey Mysterio's daughter.
Oh, shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and just great.
Wow.
And then even going a few years down the line, even more when The Rock came back and him versus The Rock, and people were kind of split on it both ways. And he had that famous tagline, you know, your arms are just too short to box with God.
I love
Right in The
that
Rock's
line.
face, standing, you know, toe to toe, face to face with him, didn't cower and still knew how to play that heel. And then even up to against The Undertaker, being that heel with Paul Heyman.
Oh,
and
the urn.
him,
Yeah.
and the urn, and playing Paul Bearer and coming out and just clowning the whole thing after Paul Bearer had passed.
Right. That was like a couple. That feud started like right after Paul Bearer died, right?
Yeah. So there's so many great time periods of CM Punk and him being a heel and him understanding it, and from the people that came before him that he learned it from and took it from, and the people after that have taken it from him too. Like
when he sided with Paul Heyman, you know, one of my favorite things with CM Punk was in WWE was, and you can't forget his classic matches with Samoa Joe and Ring of Honor, or masterclass. I mean, his feuds with Chris Hero, going way back in the day, was so good. And in WWE, when he was in the Straight Edge Society, and he was in the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
And every time he started out like number one, and every time he threw somebody out, he'd get the microphone and start preaching to the crowd and like about joining the Straight Edge Society. And then somebody else would come out and he'd eliminate them and then sit back down in the ring and just keep preaching. And like, it was just gaining massive heat. Like that 100%. Was beautiful, beautiful heat. Like the crowd was to the point where when he got thrown out, the crowd just blew up. Like they were so excited to see him get fucking thrown out of the ring, you know?
Yeah.
I like thinking back to the pipe bomb. The promo of all promos out of that man.
Right.
Now, John Cena, while you lay there as uncomfortably as humanly possible, just the shit that came out of his mouth. But I believe like 80% of that was not supposed to be said.
Yeah,
like when he started bringing up Colt Cabana. Yeah, he was still a heel.
He was still a heel at that point. Yeah.
His contract was about to expire. He brought up Ring of Honor and Colt Cabana.
Yeah.
And then when he started to talk about Vince is when his mic got cut off.
Right.
Like, you knew right then, like, okay, he was about to get into something we aren't supposed to know.
And that was the whole end of that whole Nexus era, too.
I was going to say Nexus Punk, too. I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Obviously, he debuted the greatest theme song to ever exist, Cult of Personality.
Oh.
That's my favorite entrance, favorite theme. I don't care what anybody says. When you hear that record scratch, you know who's coming out. It's fucking. I'm mad you brought him up before I did, man. I was really looking forward to bringing up Punk next.
Well, I mean,
it's Andy. You knew it was coming.
You can go to sleep. You can go to sleep now.
My final one that I'm gonna touch on here is it's a faction from the. We're going way back to World Class Championship Wrestling. And I'm talking the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Buddy Roberts, and Terry Gordy. Larger than life heels. When WCCW was the Von Erichs, were the, Fritz Von Erich, the dad, owned WCCW, and the Von Erichs were the biggest baby faces in the company. Like women like jumping the rails to kiss them and hug them, and they were just larger than life celebrities in Texas and in the WCCW territory. And the Fabulous Freebirds came in to be like the ultimate heel faction against them. And if I remember correctly, the Fabulous Freebirds were the first wrestlers, the first faction to use like entrance music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they used Leonard Skinner to come to the ring. Yep. And they wore the stars and bars, and it was just kind of back then maybe a little more accepted than it is today. But like I said before, to have a great babyface, you need a great heel.
Yeah.
And that group came in to really challenge and put the biggest baby faces in WCCW, the Von Erichs, really put them in what people thought was serious danger. And some of their matches were very well done. I'm not a big 6-man guy. And then they had the Freebird rule. When they won the tag titles, they had what they implemented was the Freebird rule. They won the tag team titles, but any two members of the Freebirds could defend the titles on any given night. So you didn't know what 2 Freebirds you were fighting against. And it was kind of a cool little stipulation that they brought in and made it their own. And I love, Terry Gordy was a really great big wrestler. Michael Hayes was like the flashy guy, and Buddy Roberts is more the technician. But them together, the Fabulous Freebirds. And I mean, there was different iterations of it throughout wrestling, but the original Freebirds was kind of where I stick with that. And that's I'll put my heel faction of the week, the Fabulous Freebirds.
Nice. I'll go with the all-time heels, owners of the company, the McMahons in general. Like, you're fired. Again. Beefed with everybody, did what he wanted, larger than life, built the company, went from being a commentator pretty much. And when the Austin days came around, to getting stunned when Austin was almost a heel, and then turning it around to being the corporation and being the man that everybody hated, probably on and off screen. Definitely to this day. I'm not sure how different the character was from him in real life to how it was on screen. I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty close, and I don't think people were very surprised when things came out, what happened or what was said, or just because what we've seen on the show in the past.
It's almost like it was half expected, you know?
Yeah.
Like half the shit he did in the ring, the Kiss My Ass Club.
Yeah.
But
so good. The corporate ministry. It was me, Austin. Yeah. It was me the whole time. I fucking quote that once a week, if not more. I don't know, it just pops in my head. It makes me fucking laugh. Shit is so
his
ridiculous.
wife, Linda McMahon, in the wheelchair and having her committed and getting out of. And how many times did he turn on his family and, on his son or daughter? And then, Shane was such a great heel at times, and Stephanie too. And Triple H in with him too. I mean, come on.
Yeah, which you could segue that into the Authority.
Yeah.
In the most recent heel run for Triple H.
Right.
Like, I mean, the Authority was during a time period in pro wrestling where no one really cared much, and it was just kind of But the Authority was a highlight, constantly costing Roman the title. Like, I always think back to that Rumble where AJ Styles debuted, where it ended up being for the World Heavyweight, the WWE Championship, and Triple H came out at number 30 and ended up winning it.
Vince McMahon was even in a Rumble. Remember?
Yes.
Royal Rumble 99.
Yeah.
Austin was number 1 and Vince McMahon was number 2.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning the Royal Rumble, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, Vince McMahon won the Royal Rumble. Oh, man.
He was the champion, too.
Yeah.
That's wild to think
and the ECW champion with the bandana.
Yeah.
But my final heel is the man that punted Vince McMahon in the head. The legend killer, Randy Orton. The Viper. Dude, heel Orton, incredible work. Incredible work. That whole arc of just punting people in the face, ending careers, was just beautiful. And Orton's work on a mic transcends his work in the ring.
His facial expressions.
Oh, yeah.
You believe he's like psychotic. Like when he did the whole Viper, like that whole thing, you just believe he heard voices in his head, When
he shaved his head and he was kind of skinny, that's when he debuted Voices. And then obviously you got Legacy, was a great heel group, what it was and what time it was there for. just because all the legends they would go after. But
Yeah. So a few honorable mentions, got to talk about The Miz somewhat, coming from the real world and then becoming
He's a
this
good
big
heel.
superstar and ultimately beating John Cena at WrestleMania. People hated him. He drew a reaction. Even to this day, he can turn it on and off whenever he wants.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rick Rude.
Ooh.
Oh my God.
Would Rick Rude put Jake the Snake Roberts' wife's face on the front of his tights before the match just to fuck with him? Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Nuclear. Owen Hart.
Yeah,
Owen Hart, yeah.
big one, huge. Yeah,
Owen
can't
Hart.
say it enough. Yeah,
so good. I'll any chance I get to bring up Owen Hart, I will as well. Owen Hart was phenomenal.
What about early 2000s heel Jericho?
Jericho, oh, Jesus.
That feud with John Cena when Eric Bischoff was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, like
Yokozuna. Yokozuna, man, who was gonna beat this man? Like Zuna, and then anytime anybody Bret Hart got close at WrestleMania 9, and Mr. Fuji, who's another manager honorable mention, threw the salt in Bret Hart's face and cost him the title.
Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like some of his best work was as a heel. Granted, he was a great babyface too, but he was an even better fucking heel.
Yeah, when he was teamed up with Diesel, and they had the tag team and kind of turning on each other too, and whole Sid Vicious stuff, Sweet Chin Music to Marty Jannetty through the glass, through the window. Yeah. What a big heel turn that was, right?
Yeah, at the barbershop. Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, the barbershop. Yeah.
No one saw that coming.
Jake the Snake Roberts when he was a heel. Jake the Snake Roberts is another guy. He didn't have to do too much in the ring because his mouth got him over. Love Jake the Snake Roberts. Yeah,
the Snake and Macho Man Randy Savage and
heel Undertaker.
Everybody. Yeah.
When he was Macho King Randy Savage. Oh, so good. Yeah. So good. And then the match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man at WrestleMania 3 is arguably one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. But it was because Randy Savage people hated him so much. Like they made Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was already a star, but it made him that much bigger because everybody wanted to see Macho Man get taken down.
Right. Yeah, Macho Man was really the greatest as a heel, especially in that time period. Of built himself up to be that until the crowd did turn with him. Yeah. We've talked about all these heels and how great they are, and it really goes to show how important a good heel and a good face is, and how important they are to each other. And pretty much that's what wrestling is about: is the struggle versus good versus evil. Good versus bad. Like you need that, and that's what a heel does. Engages the audience more too.
Yeah, to that. And what you've touched on before with modern day wrestling, with split crowds taking you out of it, and I agree completely. Like if half the crowd's chanting one person, half the crowd's chanting the other person, it's like I don't get invested in this big mountain that's got to be overcame. Like you want the heel to be somebody that you want to see the baby face beat. And when it's constant split crowds, it's like I lose investment as a fan because I try to get lost in the storyline. But what's the storyline? I want both guys to win. Why do I care so much? Been great to bring up at the beginning of this episode, but
we all want to be smart wrestling fans, but there's got to be a line somewhere in between that gray area where we're all kind of on the side of who should be to make the show better.
And I kind of almost want to stay off social media and things like that, just to kind of be lost in the moment of wrestling and where they're going with it, and not constantly like something happens, so I got to run to social media to see like what's legitimate, what's fake, I kind of I have that like angel devil on my shoulder with that, because I want to be lost and immersed in the story, but social media these days takes that away, and I feel like sometimes the art form gets lost because we're constantly trying to dig in deeper to what's really going on instead of just seeing the product and just believing the product,
Agreed.
We want to give all the respect to the wrestlers because they put so much into it. So you want them to get the respect out of it and the props for the character that they are portraying. So you want to play into that. Like, I've been to events and there's been times I wanted to cheer for the people, but I'm going to boo just because that's the reaction that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the show is supposed to be and should be. And so that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think this is a good segue into our matches of the weeks. I'm going to go with an instant classic, and that's Chris Benoit versus Shawn Michaels versus Triple H at WrestleMania 20.
Oh.
Yeah. Y'all remember that one?
Sure do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about 20 years ago, but shit.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody hasn't watched that, Benoit versus Michaels versus Triple H, WrestleMania 20. Great match. Great finish. I suggest everybody check that one out.
Okay, I'm going to go with February 18th, 1985.
Oh,
Ooh.
damn.
The war to settle the score. We had the immortal Hulk Hogan, the WWF champion, challenged by Rowdy Roddy Piper. And the war to settle the score was the event that led into the inaugural WrestleMania. And it was the first time Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Roddy Piper faced each other. And it was actually broadcast on MTV.
Yes, okay.
Because they were trying to gain a broader audience, coming up with WrestleMania, like a star-studded WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that was the only match that was actually aired on MTV was Rowdy Roddy Piper versus Hulk Hogan, and which ultimately led into the tag team match with Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. The match itself, it wasn't a 5-star match by any means, but that match catapulted professional wrestling to where it is today because it brought a broader audience into the spectacle, which was WrestleMania and professional wrestling moving forward. And that was kind of like where I felt like it really truly became sports entertainment and less pro wrestling. Gorilla Monsoon used to say it, the irresistible force meets the immovable object. Like, that's what that felt like. I mean, I wasn't even alive when the match happened, but like to go back and watch it and see all the stuff leading up to it and what became from it. I think that match is as important as any is to where pro wrestling is today.
Yeah, I guess one could say without the moments like that, WrestleMania wouldn't be what it is today. Not even close.
Without the build-up. Yeah, because they did some promos and they did a lot of advertising, like you said, with MTV. And then they had that match on there, and that was the first of its kind. And that's when MTV was at its height, of course, in the 80s at that point. So what better place to do it and get more people interested in it, and then to lead up to that WrestleMania match and have all the stars be there too, music stars and MTV people of that time. Yeah,
and Rowdy Piper kicking Cyndi Lauper across the ring, and Cyndi Lauper was like the big darling child of pop music at that time, and she came in the ring and he kicked her across the ring, and the whole lead up, and it just added to the animosity of you wanting to see Rowdy Roddy Piper get his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Can't say enough about Rowdy Piper. Yeah, so, and talking about Rowdy Piper and talking about some of the greatest heels, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here. And we talked about it before, but I'm going to bring it up. AEW Revolution 2022, the dog collar match, MJF versus CM Punk. And what a great lead up it was, and what a great feud it was to the match with promos and a couple match leading up to it with MJF cheating, of course, in every way possible to get the win, to make this match a thing. And then CM Punk going back to his throwback days of Ring of Honor and the Indies even before that with the dog collar match that he had with Raven and other people. JF doing one of the great heel things, coming out for the dog collar match, played Punk's music, got the crowd all hype, comes out and hits his music, looking like a big snob, of course. And Punk uses the reverse psychology on him and plays his music from the Ring of Honor days, AFI.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And just MJF sells it so perfectly in that match. So surprised. That's like one of the great things about MJF being a heel too. He knows how to, his facial expressions when he's getting beat up and when people are talking to him and it's time for him to get his, he just sells it so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So Punk comes out in his throwback gear to the Ring of Honor days, of course, too. And the match, that's the thing about the match too, because it was such a great story up to that point. The match didn't even have to be like incredible. I don't know if it was a 5-star match either, technically, but it did what it needed to do. They used the dog collar so perfectly. They both bled.
Right.
They had the thumbtacks at one point. Wardlow comes out with the dynamite diamond ring, can't find it. Punk hits a GTS on MJF, and then he finds a ring from Wardlow. Wardlow helps him out, and he gets the win.
Mm-hmm.
But just such a great match between two people that were great heels at their own time and will be for history.
Great. I'm starting to wonder if we're ever going to see heel CM Punk again. I would love to see it.
I think so.
You think
At
we'll
some
get
point.
it eventually?
Yeah, for sure.
Just when you think you got all the answers, he changes the questions.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I think that's all we got for you guys this week. As always, I'm Kevin alongside Jesse and Andrew.
And you've been listening to the Ringside Renaissance Wrestling Podcast. Peace.